Resident Evil 4 is legitimately one of my favorite video games of all time. I've seen the end credits of this thing roll more times than I've had hot dinners, and that's real. I'm talking like 20-30 times minimum. With the remake on the way, we thought it might be nice to take a quick trip down memory lane and take a look at some of Resident Evil 4's best hidden little secrets and Easter eggs you might have missed. One last time before I snoop over every single inch of the remake. Let me hear from you. What game would you love to see get the Resident Evil 4 remake treatment from the ground up? For me, personally, I would lose my mind to see a next-gen Metal Gear Solid 3, so let's dive on in. Number 10, that dog. Coming up first is one of the more apparent ones in the game. Really early on, you find a helpless pooch caught in a bear trap, whimpering. The developers actually included this Easter egg as a quick psychological test. If you help the dog out of the trap, you pass and you're a normal member of society, but if you walk past it, they send your internet IP to the authorities. Not really, but they should. Anyway, assuming you saved the dog, he comes back later in a big way, triumphantly appearing during the first El Gigante boss fight to provide some much needed distraction from the cave troll swinging trees around at our hunky hero. The highlight is Leon boldly shouting, "Hey, it's that dog!" Which sounds extremely silly because it's like the only dog he's met, but here's what I bet you didn't know. That dog is a specific reference to Haunting Grounds, a PS2 survival horror game that I am willing to put some money down that 99% of you have never even heard of. If you have, shout it out in the comments just for me. I'm genuinely curious about this one. And if you're looking for more great gaming content on the web, Easter eggs, scary theories, previews, who knows what, Top 10 Gaming's got all of that and then some on all the latest and greatest games. So click through, find something to like, stay subscribed, and stay watching. But stay watching this video first before you check out the rest of the channel, okay? Alright. Moving on. Number 9, Mendez. Our next one is one that's very easy to miss, but once you learn about it, it kind of becomes a requirement on future playthroughs because I think it just makes the game better. At the beginning of chapter 1-3, Leon is in the house of the big cheese, Vitores Mendez, the Rasputinian village chief who's a bit of a pain in the butt. He'll pick Leon up with one hand and throw him around the room like he's an action figure he's bored of, and Leon tries to walk it off and play it like nothing happened. Now, it's a video game, so when you get control back of Leon, you're probably gonna move forward and away from the guy who was bullying you. But if you do a 180 and head right back into the room to try again, you get a secret little cutscene where Mendez understandably starts roughing you up even worse, although this time your meeting is intercepted by what looks like a very familiar raven-haired woman in a red dress. Just who could she be? Extremely cool, missable little scene that I do think adds a ton on repeat playthroughs and add a little bit of foreshadowing for Ada later in the game. Cool stuff. Number 8, a tip of the hat. Leon is probably one of the best dressed video game characters to ever do it. Despite only appearing in 2 chapters of the game, his leather jacket is iconic, and the whole early 2000s boy band aesthetic mixed with tactical straps and ammo pouches really is something. Runway ready, let me say. If you clear the game once though, you get an alternate outfit for Leon from RE2, dressed in his SWAT outfit from his infamously bad first day at the Raccoon Police Department. But if you clear Ada Wong's Separate Ways campaign, you get a really cool outfit that makes Leon look like a mafia boss, complete with a long cashmere scarf and a fedora. If you pair this with the equally mafioso Chicago typewriter, when you reload, Leon will tip his fedora. No, seriously, it's hilarious. And if you do it enough times in a row, instead of tipping the fedora, Leon takes the hat, throws it into the air, and then catches it before putting it back on his head. Watching Leon stunt on the Ganados never gets old. Best of all though, if Leon's dressed like a mobster, Ashley will also get a Halloween costume on and she'll be dressed like a knight. Except it's a functional suit of armor that prevents her from being grabbed, and even if Leon picks her up, he'll bend over and he'll ache like his back is hurting. This game had more attention to detail than little stuff than the games we get today. Number 7, the Merchant. The unnamed merchant in Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite characters across the series, and I'm not joking. I love this dude who shows up, is unbelievably suspicious, but is ultimately just a really chill guy who wants to sell you vintage weaponry in exchange for chessboards, crowns, jewels, and ornate dinnerware. What is he doing with any of that stuff? He talks in a pirate accent and sets up little firing ranges where you can win toys, seemingly just to entertain Leon. He might be the best character in any video game ever, to be honest. But there's kind of something up with him. About 2/3 of the way through the game, you'll notice his eyes have started shining bright red, just like the infected in the game. As well, if you manage to bring some of the zombies to him by letting them chase you to wherever he's set up, they'll just ignore him and he'll ignore them. Live and let live, I guess. In fact, it makes you wonder how he's been able to set up so many of his little stalls, shops, shooting galleries, and where he's even getting any of his merchandise. If by some stroke of misfortune, I won't tell, the merchant happens to die, he won't appear at the same spot that he died at, but he will be at the next scheduled spot. No questions asked, no hard feelings, totally forgives you. This guy does not let feelings get in the way of business. So yeah, maybe he's a zombie, but he's definitely a pretty friendly one, so don't be a stranger. Number 6, Le Professionel. Butchered that. Resident Evil has never made it a secret that the series has been heavily inspired by Hollywood movies. And drive-in B movies, let's be real. Namely things like Romero's classics Dawn and Day of the Dead, but also from a lot of weird little places you wouldn't expect. If you finish the game once, on your next playthrough you'll unlock Leon's old cop outfit, but also his sidearm from the second game, the Matilda, a customized VP-70M. If you love Luc Besson films about sad, depressed hitmen, then maybe you noticed that Leon and Matilda were the two main characters in Leon the Professional. Fantastic little film, by the way. If that's not quite enough for you to convince yourself that this is a very intentional reference, after finishing RE4 once, you'll also unlock a harder than hard difficulty mode called Professional mode. And this difficulty setting doesn't appear in any other of the Resident Evil games. So with all that, you have Leon, Matilda, and Professional mode, making a very obscure reference to an exceedingly good weird film. Number 5, Krauser. Near the end of the game on the island, and spoilers, I guess, for a video game that's probably older than most of the audience watching this, Leon has to duke it out with an old squad mate of his, one Jack Krauser. This super buff, mean German mercenary type who's quick with a bow and even better with a knife. He's a demon, and that's before he turns into a scary flesh monster. In classic Resident Evil bad guy fashion, just when you think you're done with him, he goes off on a big monologue about the nature of humanity and then mutates into a horrifying beast with a sword for an arm, ready to give Leon an impromptu haircut. Your first instinct is to probably blow through every last drop of ammo you've been saving up all game, but if you rush up to Krauser with your dinky little knife drawn, for this fight only, the knife has a ×40 damage modifier, paying homage to the knife duel you and Krauser had earlier. I always thought this was one of the coolest Easter eggs in the game that sort of rewards thinking of like themes and symbolism, but also kind of rewards daredevil behavior. Absolutely love seeing stuff like that in games. Number 4, Stars Legal Protection. After you finish Resident Evil 4 and you're sitting there watching the credits reminiscing on the fact that you just played one of the greatest video games of all time, you'd probably be forgiven for not paying too much attention to those credits. They're kinda neat though. Through a series of paintings we get to see how the once peaceful village of unnamed rural part of Spain was a happy flourishing community before someone came along and turned everybody into noodle-headed monstrosities. Aside from just that though, there's a very teeny tiny little Easter egg near the end for big time Resident Evil fans. In place of the usual legal jargon, the final text reads, "This game is protected under the laws of the Raccoon Police Department. Unauthorized duplication, distribution may result in civil liability and criminal prosecution by an appropriate STARS member and then some." Now, any Resident Evil fan worth their salt will instantly recognize that as the special police unit from Resident Evil 1 and the department that Leon worked at for all of an afternoon all the way back in Resident Evil 2. A side question, does this still hold up as a legal document, or does them mentioning a fictional police department mean that you actually can totally make illegal copies of Resident Evil 4? I don't invite you to try. I'm sure Capcom's lawyers would love to answer that question for you. Number 3, there's no time for resting. Another great one near the end of the game. In the island section of the game, during chapter 5-3, there is an utterly ridiculous, over-the-top laser hallway straight out of Mission Impossible or one of the sillier Resident Evil movies. You get to watch Leon get his Matrix on, flipping, diving, running up walls to avoid the lasers, really showing off what that Secret Service training paid for. After pulling off this great feat of athleticism, you find yourself in the throne room of Saddler, the game's villain. Approach the throne room carefully and you'll find a gem on the chair. I guess he was keeping it warm? Anyway, click on the throne again though and watch Leon take a load off as he relaxes in the throne, doing his own little supervillain impression, getting comfy and looking extremely evil. After sitting for about a moment, Leon will think there's no time for resting. And a little fun personal fact, that screenshot of Leon sitting in the chair saying there's no time for resting has been my desktop background for approximately 7 years. I really like this game if that has not come across in this video at all. Number 2, you pervert. Alright, this one is one of the most infamous Resident Evil Easter eggs of all time, maybe up there as one of the most infamous ones in gaming, but it's too good not to include. This is definitely not going to be in the remake. As soon as you rescue Ashley Graham, the president's daughter, you you've got to get her out of the church she's been held captive in first. Ashley isn't a super secret agent who can do backflips and spin kicks, so she needs a lot of help with physical tasks, and she gets stressed out by ladders and tall ledges. Okay, so anyway, if you're below her on a tall ledge and she's above you, and if you aim through a weapon that has a zoomable scope, you can zoom in up her skirt. I'm not saying you should, just that you can. She'll notice this and she'll scream, "Hey, you pervert!" and cover up, presumably trying not to think about how the secret agent that her father sent to rescue her from a hostage situation has a real dirty mind. And by the way, I've never done this Easter egg, okay? I just heard about it from a friend, okay? Like a friend of a friend. I definitely never had a parent see this and get the GameCube taken away for a week. That happened to a friend of a friend. This will not be in the remake, so I don't know, enjoy this while you can. We've all grown up a bit. Also, Ashley is now wearing stockings instead of a tennis skirt. Anyway, moving on. We're gonna move on from it. Number 1, don't shoot the water. And coming in at the number 1 spot for today is my favorite Resident Evil 4 Easter egg. In chapter 1-3, we have our first proper boss fight of the game, the terrifying Moby Dick-like encounter against Del Lago, the giant mutated salamander monster hiding in the bottom of the lake. A little side note, I always thought Del Lago was like a very scary name until I learned it's just literally from the lake. Anyway, you can see the Ganados rolling people into the water, so we know something bad is swimming around there. But you can get yourself a sneak peek of Del Lago if you go up to the docks down by the shack with the typewriter and fire off a few rounds into the water. You'll scare the fish and litter a bit. But keep doing it long enough and eventually you'll irritate the lake's main resident, Del Lago, sufficiently enough that he jumps out of the water and swallows Leon whole in one bite before dunking back down. That'll teach you to pollute our beautiful lakes, Leon. I'm seriously hoping this one stays in the remake because this was always one of my absolute favorites, and it's a super funny thing to pull on somebody who's never played the game. Sit next to them, tell them there's like a hidden treasure or something if you shoot the water, and then laugh as you watch them throw the controller through the ceiling. Never gets old. And that's about all she wrote for this video, my friends. Thanks so much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you in the next one.